Okay. How are you, everybody? Dr. Dusa here. I know the other day I had John defend this. This is a new series, our longevity podcast. I can't give you the full name of the longevity podcast yet because it's still going through trademark. So there's that. But, you know, we had a lot of fun with John Defendis. A lot of you know him here from the page, a lot of our 5,000 plus members. And he was a lot of fun. He was very, very informative. He's a guy that I like to go to learn about what I have to do in certain circumstances, because as Troy Zuccolotto, today's guest, and I were just talking about off camera, one of the important things about anything as far as being successful in life is being around people who are successful already. And then you just do as they do or you learn from them. But Troy is only a year older than me. I'm 56, he's 57. You know, we don't like to use the word old, but that's the chronology of it.
Go ahead, Mike. You could say it. We're old.
Yeah. Hey, man, it beats the alternative. But, you know, Troy's a guy who worked, you know, and anybody could say they've worked incredibly hard. You can work hard and be on the wrong course for things. But as a young guy, he was a teenage bodybuilder. He really didn't. Somebody suggested he go into a show. There were 45 competitors, came in second. So right there, he knew that he had something there. I've mentioned that I was talking to Evan Centopani, top IFBB pro today, and I could never get big. And he said, listen, Mike, you know, he's gigantic. He's 270. He says, I was like this when I was 20. You find out very early if you have it or not. It's not drugs. It's not, you know, you can do whatever you want, but if you don't have that element to go to the top, you just don't, and that's all there is to it. But getting back to that, you know, Troy did very well in bodybuilding, became one of the top amateurs ever, won the nationals, went into the pros. Interestingly, he was one of the 14 bodybuilders in the WBF. Vince McMahon started that organization. And Troy, you may not know, I was the unofficial chiropractor for you guys. I never worked on you. Gold's Gym in New Haven, Montanari Brothers.
The Montanari, yeah, absolutely.
I remember you were down there doing that photo session with the motorcycle. That was very cool.
I actually went there a couple of times when we'd go out for the WBF events, and that's where we would train, is over at the Montanari Brothers.
That was a place to go. It still is now, although it's closed currently. Hopefully not much longer. But so he was on the ground floor of that, and he went back to Weeder and did a couple of shows. But he's going to tell you why Mr. Olympia wasn't in the cards for him and what his brother told him to do once he did get some substantial money, not ever seen by bodybuilders in general, from McMahon. And he did the right things. He made the right moves, because we all know you can make some mistakes throughout life, and you just don't want to make the ones that end you. And if you do, you don't want to make them repeatedly, like so many people do. So he's really going to convey to us today how he bridged the gap from bodybuilding to a very ultra successful professional life, and also how keeping his health and working on his longevity personally, and also propagating that for thousands and thousands of people over the years, has led him far afield to where he would be otherwise if he didn't pursue such exploits, and if he gave into the thing where people think, well, I'm old now and I can't do this and that, because that's a bunch of malarkey. And we'll learn that. And I'm going to stop rambling and say, hello, Troy. How are you, my friend? You're always very gracious with your time.
Oh, I appreciate it. Always good seeing you and talking to you, Mike. Everything's great. How about yourself?
You know, I like to say every day is like a holiday. And if you say that enough, you believe it like pathology. No, everything's great. Listen, when I wake up, I won lotto. And if I ever have any type of ruminations, it's only for a little bit of time in the morning. And I get that out of the way, and I don't let it interfere during the day. I just compartmentalize because if it keeps creeping in, you know, then you're, I don't know, schizophrenic or bipolar. Nothing wrong with that if you got that. But hey, Troy, start us off. People like to know, we establish your background as to why we're talking to you, and you know, talk about how you started lifting and you got into bodybuilding, and your parents supported you and whatnot, and how hard it was and how hard you worked. And folks, here we go. We've got some people already. Oh, Defendis has to put his 2 cents in here. You don't have sound, John? You don't have sound? Folks,
John just come on here to tell him how he beat me in the USA. That's what he's doing.
Yeah, you know he's going to bring that. He's going to bring that. So go ahead, Troy. Let's hear some of that.
Well, I started, you know, when I was about 14, 15 years old. And I basically did it because I played football. So I started working out, and back then there really wasn't gyms where I grew up. The closest thing to a gym at that point was the YMCA. So I started working out there when I was quite young, and I met a lot of older people that obviously had been working out for a long time. Nobody really competed that I knew of back then, but there was a lot of guys that were big and had some muscles. So I kind of would follow them, and they kind of showed me around, and I just started making gains really fast. And then when I was 17, I entered my first show, which was the Orange County, and I ended up placing second out of 45 teenagers. And at that point, Mike, I really didn't know how to diet, how to work out, how to pose, what kind of posing trunks. You know, back then they didn't have any Pro-Tan or Diaderm or the skin coloring like they did do today. So I kind of just learned by following people in the gym, and then I gradually progressed and kept decided, you know, that I might have something here. And so I just started competing regularly, and I continued to win.
You know, at that point, what did your parents think about all that, the competing and the training?
Well, my parents, I came from a really good, strong Italian family, and I really had supportive parents. And, you know, that my dad always instilled in me that, you know, you can be whatever you want to be if you're willing to work hard enough for it. So for me, they see me progress, you know, didn't know what my goals or what my ambition was at all. You know, of course, I started thinking about, you know, after seeing Arnold and Lou on Wide World of Sports back then, you know, because back then they'd show it on, you know, ABC's Wide World of Sports.
Saturdays.
They showed the Olympia every year. And I remember seeing Arnold and Lou and Serge Nubret and people like that. I just thought, wow, man, I would love to look like that one day. It's just incredible to me. I remember even when what's that?
No, I'm sorry. At that point, looking at them, because to me they were like cartoons, did you believe that you could do that, even if it was youthful naivety?
I didn't know if I could get to that size. I wasn't sure, because when I look at them, they just looked to me like they were inhuman, you know, like, man, how does somebody get that big? And I didn't know really what to do or how to get, because I grew up in an area where nobody really knew how to train right and train properly and eat right and all the small things that go into being a champion.
I'll only interrupt you when I think there should be expanding on a certain point. Speaking of that, as far as people, because this was the 70s, just like me, do you recall the general populace and what they thought of lifting weights and bodybuilding?
Well, most people back then thought they were just like freaks. You know, back then they was like, how does somebody look like that? You know, what can they do with that? Back then they're going to be muscle bound. They can't do anything. They can barely walk. You know, that type of stuff is the typical stereotype of a bodybuilder. They're all muscle and no go, basically. You know, but for me, I wanted to do it mainly for football so I could get bigger and stronger. But for whatever reason, I just started making gains and started looking really good. And so I decided to compete. And I just kept going, you know, and winning shows, and won several teenage shows, won the California, the Nationals, and that type. And so it was something that, to me, that I knew I could make a living at it. But I wasn't going to put all my eggs in one basket, so to speak. I wanted to use my ability of what I have genetically as a bodybuilder, but take it on into other aspects of life.
You know, plus you had an older brother who was probably still is very industrious. So you saw his end of things.
Yes, he was a builder, and he just recently retired, but he's quite successful, has been his whole life. He's just very driven and ambitious. And he saw that I had the same genetics type of thing, but in a different area, that I was going to use my body more to make me money, and he was using his skills, because my dad's a very skilled person. My dad could build anything, so he was. I got the least genetics as far as that goes. As far as building, like my older and younger brother are both really good builders, and I don't have a clue on how to build. So,
well, you know, I own one hammer, and I don't know how I got it.
yeah,
so.
I put a tool belt on every once in a while just to make me think that I know how to build, but I don't have a clue of how to do things. So I let the experts take care of that.
A little bit of false. John Defendis Troy is one of the few that was wise enough to branch out and not rely on bodybuilding. John, as are you, and that's why we're going to expand on this. But we're going to take it. We're going to take it in a 1, 2, 3 storyboard fashion, just like that storyboard you had when you were a kid in your basement that made you become Mr. America. Troy, when did Joe Weider discover you? Because now you're in the thick of winning. You know, you're getting up to the Mr. America Nationals level. You're standing next to guys like Defendants on stage. You know, top level amateurs ever. So
Right.
Weider,
and I actually remember John in the early years of me growing up. I used to see him in Muscle Digest and stuff like that, and he was. They always had a section of up and coming stars, and I remember reading about John Defendis. And then John kind of went away for a while and I didn't hear much from him anymore until actually the USA in 1988 is the first when I heard he was coming back. I remembered him from years prior to that when he was doing an up and coming really at that point. But I didn't really when Weider first acknowledged me is after I won in 1983 I won the Junior Mr. California. And I ended up getting from.
Well, I'm sorry. Does junior mean you're still a teenager, or is that like?
No. You're over a teenager, but it's kind of like the Junior Nationals. You can still compete, no matter how old you are. You can still compete in the Junior Nationals. I just didn't think I was ready for the California because that year, I believe Mike Christian had won it in 1983, and so. I waited, so I end up doing the Junior Cal in 83, and then I went to it in 1984, where I took second.
You kind of missed then Liedlmeyer, Mendenhall, Gaspari. Remember those guys that were all in the same class? And it was like
absolutely. Yeah. Rory, you know, obviously was from California, and Rory actually helped me the year I won the California in 1986. So Rory actually put me on a diet and taught me how to do everything properly. Because even up till that point, I really didn't know, or I never got advice from other people. I kind of just went with what I had read, that type of thing to get in shape. And then 84, the year Doug Stadley won it, I took second. And that's when I actually got my first call from Weider. And I did a couple of articles inside there before I'd even won the Cal.
He liked your look because you did a lot of covers.
Yeah, Joe was always one of those guys that liked the blonde hair, blue-eyed, all-American look. And I had that look, kind of a surfer type look back then. And he liked my image and liked he always thought I reminded him of Dave Draper, you know, one of his early guys. And he always liked my look. And so I was very fortunate to have met Joe, and I actually got a lot of publicity before I'd even turned pro.
Would you agree with this? And I think I probably got this from you, but I've interviewed, I don't know, upwards of 100, you know, different bodybuilders, a lot of my IFBB pros, former pros, and I've never got one negative comment about Weider. All this crap you hear, but you know.
No, there's a lot of people that had negative comments about him, but you know, Joe was always real good to me. Did I lose your mic here?
No.
I lost you on my page, so I don't know what the hell I did.
No, we're still here.
Okay. But anyway, he was always real good to me, and for some reason, Mike, I lost you here.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine, but
yeah, you're still. I could check my page, and you're still projecting. So
yeah,
for
some reason I can't see you anymore. So I don't know what I did.
That's probably the goal of many people.
Yeah.
Let me just check the feed real quick here, and I could see what everyone else is seeing in 1 second here. You know, my computer is so slow. Here we are. Come on out. Yeah, we're still on. We're
okay,
still going.
I don't see you, but that's fine. We can still talk.
Good.
but anyway, yeah, I love Joe. Joe was great to me. Always was perfect with me, and he actually I ended up getting a contract with him before I even turned pro. So I have nothing but great things to say about Joe.
You know, what happened when you finally were approached, you and the other 14 or 13 or 14 IFBB guys, with via McMahon and the WBF and the big contracts, which were never offered by Joe, I don't think. I mean, you made that decision, right?
Well, for me, Mike, I had just won the Nationals that year, and so I was on every cover of every magazine at one point. So the timing for me when the WBF came out was actually perfect because Vince was really wanting to push to get me because I was I was the reigning national champion. And
Troy, how did that happen? I'm sorry to interrupt, but did somebody see you in the gym? They just walked up to you, or you were?
No, actually, Tom Platz was the main guy over there. He was in charge of recruiting all the athletes, and so I ended up getting a call from Tom and kind of told me about what was going on. I heard it through the rumor mill that Vince was going to start a bodybuilding organization, and he was going to pay like he pays the wrestlers, which right there to me I was like, man, this is like a dream come true. Bodybuilders don't make any money, certainly.
Did you have a contract? Did you have a contract with Joe?
I had a contract with Joe, but it wasn't at the time. It wasn't nearly as big as the one I ended up getting with Vince. So for me, when I approached Joe and just told him, it had nothing to do with not, being ungrateful for him, but I got to do what's the important thing is a business decision, and the amount I made furthered me to get to where I'm at today, basically.
Right, and you did go back though once because it folded. It was a good concept, just couldn't play out.
Right.
Because of bodybuilding being a niche, it's always going to be niche. I think. I don't think it has the ability to go mainstream like wrestling is anyhow. Which should be a niche, but it's not. I don't think it connects with enough of the hoi polloi, the regular people. I just, and because of that, there's no money. But you went back to Joe and competed for a little while, right?
Well, I went back to Joe when originally the WBF was only given 2-year deals to most of the athletes. But at that time, I negotiated a 3-year deal. So after they had folded after 2 years, I still had a year left on my contract, and I basically got paid to do nothing.
Wow.
And so I waited a whole year and didn't do much of anything. And then I ended up signing with Joe and stayed there for another year and a half. And then by that time, Mike, I was just done. I wanted to do other things. I had a lot of injuries from, pounding the weights day in and day out, year after year. And I was ready to move on and take my winnings and invest them to do other things with, basically.
We'll touch on when we get to the longevity section of our talk here. We'll talk about whether you would do things differently based upon injuries and aches and pains you may suffer today. But what was I going to ask you on that regarding? You never had aspirations to win Mr. Olympia, even though you were clearly in that potential pool of people who could at least give it a shot.
Well, Mike,
a lot of young guys, Troy, would look at a guy like you, and they're idealistic. They're younger. We've all been there, but they'll look at you and like, "Are you kidding? You're not going to go for Mr. Olympia? How can that be? This and that." So, if you could illuminate a little as to what your decision-making process was delegated by, be helpful.
For me, Mike, it wasn't so much that I didn't want to win the Olympia. For me, it was more the money wasn't there for me to, at that time, Mike, I think the first prize for Mr. Olympia was like $100,000. And I was making, 4 or 5 times that amount in the WBF, and I didn't even have to win. Yeah. So for me, it just didn't seem like what you have to do to prepare for that show, what you have to do to your body to get ready for that show. The numbers just didn't make sense to me. And So of course, yeah, I would like to win Mr. Olympia, but I wasn't willing to do what it takes when I could take my talent somewhere else and make a lot more money. Because at the end of the day, this is a business to me. It always has been and always will. And if I can find different avenues to use my strengths and my talents of what I did in the bodybuilding world, I wanted to utilize those into the business world and create an empire for myself. And that was my whole goal from the day I started lifting weights.
Well, that's very prescient of you, and you knew you had that vision in your head. And I've done some marketing for a lot of bodybuilders, and I always ask them, "What is your goal?" And they just can't clearly articulate it. I would rather have a ridiculous goal spoken to me that can't even be attained, rather than not having any at all and not really knowing why you're doing what you're doing. Because you and I both know in the 70s, if you saw a guy like Arnold or Katz walking around, you'd be shocked. But now you don't even bother. It's not. It doesn't. There's so many people now, and it doesn't really offer much outside of the confines of getting sweaty in the gym and getting big. But you did that, and that's that's fantastic. And if people could emulate that somehow, and at least you still train hard now.
I train, yeah. I do it every day. I call it my Hollywood workout because I go in, but I do it every day. I'm up at 4:30 every morning. I go to the gym and I do my 2 hours of workout every day, and then I come here and go to the office. But for me, John, a lot of it. I mean, a lot of it is just different for me. Bodybuilding today is so much different. Back, when I was competing and John DeFitness and some of the other guys, the only way you could turn professional was you had to win your class at the Nationals or the overall at the USA or the overall at the North American. That was the only way you could turn professional. Now I look at what some of these guys, I've never heard of them. They've never had any magazine. And yet I look at their Facebook page and they all say IFBB Pro. I'm like, you couldn't win Mr. Neighborhood when we competed.
Troy, my mother is an IFBB Pro. Did I tell you that?
No.
I'm kidding. No, she's not. My mother thinks I suck at bodybuilding. Yeah. No, she doesn't say that.
But there's no validity anymore in this sport. It's just to me, the sport's just about business anymore. That how many people can we get to be IFBB pros, get their fees, and it's just not about having. You don't have to work nearly as hard to be a pro today as you certainly did on the days that I competed. I mean, if you look at the people that have turned pro, the lineups back then in the top 5, they're all pros today. They would have been all pros today, and you only had one winner that came out of that each year. So it was very tough to turn pro back then.
Dorian Yates and Ronnie Coleman both got interviewed on a really good podcast called London Real. I don't know if you've ever seen it. But they were both asked, how would, the new guy, Brandon Curry, seems like a nice guy and all that, but it is what it is. How would he do in the Olympia when you guys were at your zenith? And they were like not even top 10. And that comes to this point that I'd like to offer or ask you. Would you agree that bodybuilding, when you practiced it, was a different thing than what is called bodybuilding today? It's two different things.
Well, today, Mike, if someone came to me today and said, "Hey, Troy, I can make you look like the guys that are winning today, and you would win Mr. Olympia. I could just make you look like that, you'd win Mr. Olympia." I'd say, I don't even want to win. There's no way I'd even want to look like that. There's just nothing pleasing about the physiques. There's no lines. There's no symmetry. They look like big bloated messes to me.
Do you notice something interesting, especially in back shots? There's no separation.
Because it's. I mean, we all know what they're doing today. It's so much different than the way we did. We dieted, we worked hard. Sure, we did things to get to that area, but it's nothing like it is today. And the bodybuilders back then had quality. They were rock hard, dense. Separation. I mean, you look at Dorian Yates's back, you compare him to people today, there's no comparison.
No, really, unfortunately not. Like they say, it is what it is. And I hear people always say, well, it's because of the judges. Listen, I was never delegated by, I'm a fairly good regional guy, but the point is, I trained for myself. And bodybuilding was encapsulated into 2 hours on a stage somewhere in an entire year, and that was it. You know, and the rest of the year I did it for myself. I just happened to go in a contest. I wasn't trying to be delegated by 7 people sitting on a panel, which I think is nuts.
Right.
You know, because what are they, you know, what are they asking for? I don't know. I mean, it's just not. It's very hard to sell to enough people to make a decent living because, like you said, you know, you can't breathe. It's hard to scale stairs. You can't tie your own shoes. This is some of the stuff I've heard. But segueing into this, so you've got fantastic businesses. You built an empire, especially Youth Tech Medical, and that's very relevant because, you know, my business is longevity, and you instill that in thousands of people. You practice it yourself, and, you know, the axiom may be followed. You can age, but you don't have to get old. So how do you, who are your clients and who do you propagate this for? And furthermore, make sure, you know, we're in our 50s. So how is eating different now in your 50s, training, you know, rest, supplementation, in order to keep going on and looking and feeling your best? That's a lot of stuff.
I've always eaten well my whole life, or, you know, when I started getting into bodybuilding. And it's just really, it's a part of what I do every day. You know, I kind of try to eat a high protein, high fat, low carb diet, so I stay in good shape. I take my supplements, I replace my hormones. So I'm doing it all for just longevity, to stay healthy and fit. You know, I don't care to be 300 pounds like I used to be. You know, I'm about 205, 210 now, and I just want to stay that way because I feel comfortable at this weight.
Troy, how tall are you? You're 5'11"?
I'm 6 feet.
Oh yeah, okay, me too. Wow. Hey, how would you explain this in a way? And I was watching Jay Cutler talk about this. You compare Ronnie Coleman and Jay Cutler. They're both retired, multiple Mr. Olympia winners. And, you know, obviously, sadly, Ronnie Coleman is a mess. I mean,
yeah,
vertebrae are gone, joints are gone, replaced. He ambulates on crutches. He's biking in all day. And then you've got Jay Cutler sitting there getting interviewed. And he says, look, I like Ronnie a lot, but he didn't train very smart. And Ronnie literally, think about this for a second. Would you agree? He got that 800-pound squat while he was in shape for a show, 2 reps. And to this day, he only wished he could do it 5 times. That's his attitude. But would you say this might be true where he would have got the same development going up to 600? You know, law of diminishing returns?
No question. It's not, you know, so many people, and myself included at times, you know, always thought that you had to lift this enormous weight to get that size. But it's really how you make the muscle feel that weight. You know, I always say I could take a 35-pound dumbbell and do a curl and make it feel like it's 60-pound dumbbell curl. You know, it's just really by the way you do the actual weight. And so I think when you start getting that heavy, you know, the 600, 700-pound squatting, you know, and I did some heavy weights back then, and I certainly have paid for it because, you know, I've had my share of injuries too. My back hurts, my knees hurt, my elbows hurt. I have a lot of pains and aches, and I certainly would have trained a lot differently had I known what I know now back then, and I don't think I would have had near the injuries that I've had.
John Defendis, we didn't shoot synthol, it was real muscle. He agrees with you. And then he says, today we have the men's bikini contest or board shorts, whatever. And the 5th place Mr. Pahokee in 1988 would be an IFBB pro today. Yeah, that's John Defendis. You know, he says sports become a joke. I mean, John still trains a lot of people, not so many bodybuilders, but he does train some of them, and, you know, they look different the way he trains them, you know.
Well, John, you know, John knows what he's doing, obviously, when he's training, but John's an old school guy. You trained your ass off back then to get to where you are, to that level. And, you know, it's not all about chemicals it's hard work and hard dieting. That's what a champion, there's no drug in the world that's going to make you a champion. It's hard work, and that's what it took back then. Today, it's just, I don't know. I just don't like bodybuilding. I don't like what it's become. I don't like how many pros there are. I don't like all the different classes they have now. It just, to me, there's no validity in it anymore. They're just, it's not something that I would even aspire to do, or as a kid would even want to do it anymore.
Yeah, if I were a kid now and picked up, well, there aren't magazines anymore, but if I saw this displayed somewhere, I don't know if I would gravitate to it, because back then you had Lou Ferrigno, the Hulk, on TV, you had Pumping Iron,
Right.
Mike Katz brought me to camp here. He's right local, and I grew up with him, so I had all that influence, and you don't see any of that now. But
Right.
do this for me now. Youth Tech Medical, tell me what your company's all about, who your target your prospects are, and what they want to do, and what kind of shape they come to you in, and what their goals are, and what you can do for them.
Well, mostly, Mike, as a man, when we reach the age of 30, we really start depleting our body of testosterone. And so what our objective is to do is, what happens is you start producing less free testosterone in the system and start producing more estrogen. So as you age, you start getting a pot belly, your muscles sag, you start to become soft like a woman because you're producing more estrogen and less testosterone. Our goal is to try to get you back to like you were when you were in your 20s, even when you're in your 50s and 60s, so you're still get your testosterone levels elevated and stop it from converting into estrogen, so you're still able to stay hard and muscular even as you age. So that's we do a lot of hormone therapy, but we also do, we're really into skin. We do all the Botox, the filler, the lasers, the stem cell in the face. So I'm a full on spectrum anti-aging facility.
Is it like a med spa similar?
It's a med, like a med spa on steroids, I guess is how you would say it.
I don't want to lessen it as far as what it does,
we do fat removal, hair removal, tattoo removal, all the facial stuff, stem cell in the face. So we do just about everything.
I'm going to go back to that, but Lance Stranahan, very good friend. I don't know if you know Lance, his father.
I do know him.
Yeah, his father was a pro golfer, very famous in the 40s. Hypothetical question, Troy. Let's say you had someone like myself, 57 years old, still trains hard and eats very good, but few last blood draws show test levels in the low 400s, even though there isn't a lot of symptoms. Maybe libido is a bit lower and recovery from workouts isn't that good. Do you think, I got to get rid of this thing here. Do you think, lost this for some reason.
Well, just tell Lance he's too far gone. I can't only do so much.
Do you think someone like me should go ahead and start TRT, or wait until the levels got even lower and symptoms became more pronounced?
No, because even at 400, we view those as being low. Ideally, I try to keep mine between 12 and 1500, because that's when you're really at your optimal levels. When you're 25, 26 years old, that's basically where your testosterone is. And so when you reach 30, it just keeps declining year after year. So when you're in your 50s, you're producing, I have some that come in here that's in the 100 range.
Wow.
And so, I don't care how hard you work out or how hard you diet. If you're low in hormones, you're going to see very minimal results, because that's what makes the body respond.
Troy, obviously, when you get those guys that come in the hundreds, what's their symptomatology? What is their?
Oh, they've increased in body fat, their drive. They have no sex drive. They've become soft, where I can see that they're creating more estrogen and less testosterone. Their mood isn't. They're depressed. All those type of things are a lot of it's guaranteed to comes from hormone deficiency.
And you do the intakes of these patients, and you send them off to your medical doctors that you employ.
Yeah, we have doctors on staff. We do their blood. We find out where we do a complete blood profile. So we're testing memory hormones, all kinds of stuff, prostate, cancer screening. I mean, we do a very extensive blood test prior to them, before they see the physician, and then they come in to see the physician, and then we prescribe what's necessary to replace to get their levels back to when they can start.
What are the memory hormones? What's that all about?
Memory's like pregnenolone is one of your biggest for memory. And as you age, that starts to diminish as well. So we just try to keep everything at their vitamin D levels, their vitamin C, their B12. We try to keep everything at optimal levels so you're still getting benefit even as you age.
Why do you think, because I've got quite a few clients, I try to get them to the right endocrinologists or MDs who are open to TRT, because a lot aren't. But why do you think you've got these medical doctors who, you're low normal, you're 217, they say you're fine, you're within normal, but that obvious. Why do you think they don't endorse getting you into a proper physiologic window like you were when you're in your 20s?
Well, the problem mostly, Mike, is the insurance companies delegate the ranges. So if you have somebody that's 50, their range is going to be between 200 and 1500. Well, I can guarantee you most everybody is in between that range. So then the doctors don't prescribe it because they go, well, you're within range for somebody that's 50 years old. Well, yeah, I get that, but I'm coming here because I don't want to feel 50. I want to feel like I did when I was 25 or 30. So that's the range we want to get you back to, so you get results from it. But most doctors won't prescribe it to you because you fall in that range, which is ridiculous.
I've witnessed some who are woefully deficient in understanding what we want to accomplish, because they almost intimate, oh, you're looking for steroids to get jacked up. As soon as they hear that, it just seems like a paucity of information on their behalf. They don't really know. It's like your average MD. I'm not attacking MDs per se, allopaths, but for instance, their knowledge on nutrition is almost zero. So how can you build a total health profile for a patient when you're deficient in these types of, or at least not willing to get people, into the proper window?
Fortunately it's tough, but there are physicians that will. There's a lot that won't do it. So you got to find a physician that gets what it's all about. A lot of doctors might, just because they're MDs, they don't know about hormone therapy. They have no clue on how to prescribe it or why it's important. But not to have testosterone in your system or have it low is worse off than being if you have way too high testosterone.
Well, very, very unhealthy for
You're very, because you got to realize all of your organs are muscle, and testosterone is what creates muscle. And as you age, that's why the hormones or your organs start to shrink, is because they're depleted in hormones. So you become more of a candidate to have heart disease, heart failure, heart attack, because your organs become weak as you age.
Proper levels maintain expected organal homeostasis. In other words, the organs are supposed to be a certain strength and size. Lance asked a good question. Is it true that smaller, more frequent doses per week, I'm assuming he's talking about testosterone, cause less elevation in hematocrit levels?
Yes. Hematocrit, anytime you take testosterone, it's going to increase your blood cells, your red blood cells, which increases your hematocrit and your hemoglobin. The problem is that even though you're elevated, is not necessarily a bad thing. If your hematocrit and hemoglobin get too high, then the way you compensate for that is basically saying that you have too many red blood cells in your system. So what I do is I just do what we call a therapeutic phlebotomy, where I'll just go donate some blood or just have it get rid of it, so it keeps my hematocrit low and my hemoglobin.
And I know a lot of guys do that on their own. These guys I know some guys at the gym, they just offer this information. I've been on testosterone on their own. It's not TRT, for 20 years. And then that could be one of the reasons why this chronic high blood pressure shuts your kidneys down. It's not a direct result of the actual steroid, but that's just a whole other issue.
Right.
But going back to, so where do you see, you've started this business a long time ago. What's changed? You said it's gotten more difficult.
Well, it's just you have so many. It's the government. They just want to control everything. We could sit here and talk about that all day long, Mike, and I won't, because we're here to talk about other things. But they just don't want people to be healthy anymore.
No.
It's just a crazy world we live in, and there's not enough knowledge about it unless you're in that field, or unless you go to the American Academy of Anti-Aging and learn why it's so important to replace hormones. a lot of people just don't know. They think you're just supposed to get old and die.
Yeah. Well, I think it could be the entire medical industrial complex is delegated by treating and not curing, not correcting.
Right.
My opinion, I'll take alcoholism as an example. Let's say you're an alcoholic, but you quit drinking for 20 years. My opinion is that person's no longer an alcoholic, although the machine says you are. And I believe that's partly because they keep you in that medical loop where you're always under treatment to some effect. So the money chain is never interrupted. I know that doesn't sound very good, but the world is harsh. So,
Well, it's the reality. It's just like the traditional doctor. If you go in there because you have high blood pressure, they want to just give you blood pressure they want to medicate you instead of finding the underlying issue where it can be changed with nutrition and exercise and everything else. But the medical community, and I've learned so much being in this business, is they just want to prescribe everything. You got high blood pressure, we'll take this. You got low blood pressure, take this. You got certain things wrong with you, we'll take this. They don't want to fix the problem, they just want to medicate it.
They're not very attentive to lifestyle at all, or even maybe genetic predispositions and things like that. What was I going to tell you? The growth hormone as well. I mean, you do growth hormone therapy. Are there certain requirements that a person has to meet in order to adopt some of your treatment protocols?
They just have to be deficient, where we look at, based on the American Academy of Anti-Aging, that they have to be deficient. Obviously, some guy comes in and he's already taken testosterone and his levels are high. I can't prescribe him more testosterone. We have to show deficiency in what they're doing, and our levels are just to get them back to therapeutic levels.
Right. And once you get them to therapeutic levels, you maintain that, correct?
We maintain that, correct.
The idea is you're on it for good, and that's
for good, because what happens is your pituitary gland just isn't producing it at that level anymore. So in order for you to keep it at that level, it's something that you have to continue to replace.
Troy, do you guys work at all in trying to determine somebody comes in and they're low? Like, for instance, in the literature, you'll read that the conundrum is it high body fat or obesity that causes low testosterone, or does low testosterone cause the obesity and high body weight? You correct one of them, maybe the whole thing corrects, but somebody comes in with a low numbers. Do they get an exam where you're trying to determine where the deficiency is coming from, or do you just treat the deficiency?
We treat the deficiency, but we also want to make sure, because most of the people that have low testosterone have increased body fat, and that's due to because they're converting most of their testosterone into estrogen. Right. So they start getting soft and pudgy, which is a good sign. And if you look at them and they just don't have the muscle density, that's a perfect sign of what I basically can look at somebody and tell them if they're low in testosterone or not.
Yeah. How about women? What the protocols are obviously different.
Same with women. We prescribe obviously a lower dose of testosterone deficient, but we also do all the estrogens for them. The progesterone, estradiol, that type of thing. Once they reach menopause, that's something that they need to replace as well. Otherwise, they develop osteoporosis, arthritis. They have their bones get more brittle. Those are also important for women to replace as they age.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of that. Lance Stranahan again. Does Troy see problems with eventual insulin resistance and blood sugar issues on people on therapeutic growth hormone therapy?
We don't. I haven't noticed anything like that. Changing their insulin level structures. It usually, people that are diabetic or pre-diabetic, usually when you do growth hormone, it helps with those issues.
It does.
Yes.
Troy, who is your base? You were mentioning to me, we were talking a couple of days ago. You do a lot of NFL and Major League Baseball. I mean, very high echelon groups of people as far as your services.
Yeah, we do. I do most of them. I'm helping with their diet and nutrition on them because they can't take certain stuff. Otherwise, it shows up because they're so strictly tested. So There's supplements that we do here that will increase a lot of areas that they're deficient in. But I'm mostly helping them with their diet and nutrition types of things.
when you do help them with diet, nutrition, and even if there is some TRT or other type of hormone supplementation, do you suggest or ensure or even demand that they're also working out and doing all the other important things, or you don't want?
Of course, it's like
that,
anything, Mike. Just, it's a combination of everything. Eating right, exercising right, replacing hormones, sleeping right. All those are in conjunction with each other because that's all a part of the recovery period and making improvements. Certainly, though, that when you're doing all this, you got to do basically everything. It's like saying, I drive a Ferrari, but I put regular gas in it. Well, it may look good, but it's never going to run right. It's the same with the body. If you don't feed it properly, I don't care what you're doing, it's not going to run right.
There's this one guy I know, and he drives a Ferrari, a Bentley, a Lamborghini. He drives a McLaren. Oh wait, it's you.
You know that idiot? I can't believe he has that stuff.
Hey, if you ever see the movie The Edge with Anthony Hopkins and one of the Baldwin idiots,
Alec Baldwin. I remember the Bear movie, right?
Yeah. Anthony Hopkins, he's a billionaire, and Baldwin's telling his wife, never feel bad for a man who owns a jet.
Right, exactly.
And listen, you're on point. But going back to that, hey, we got Kenny Wallach here. Kenny, I've known for 30 years. Yes, Troy Zuccolotto, awesome, Mike. No, it's all on Troy. Troy honors me with. Troy's always very generous with his time, and successful men like Troy understand that time is really the valuable essence of everything, not things. It's time, and he offers his time. Kenny is the top guy now, probably in the world, helping people pose. He's booked.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's a really good guy. He's old school too, like us, which is a good thing. But going back to that, so you've got what? You've got 2 sites in California, one in Texas,
La Jolla here, and then I have one in Dallas.
Okay, here is Newport, right?
Newport, yes. Newport, La Jolla, Dallas.
Where do you see this industry / business going, Troy, going forward?
I think it just keeps getting bigger and bigger because there's more people, especially here, Mike, in more of your affluent areas where people are obviously conscious about how they look, how they feel. Being in, La Jolla, Newport Beach, Dallas, there's a lot of money there. People care about how they look and feel. So, and I think people are getting more educated on why it's important to actually replace your hormones as you age. Here, Mike, it's like the cosmetic capital of the world. Everybody does Botox, everybody does fillers. So I'm in the right business for this area for sure.
Yeah, that's not quite like that in the northeastern confines of the country. I have to say, people are pretty much covered up a lot of the time with good reason. Even though you said this industry is getting harder because the government, of course, the government wants their slice of the pie, and if they can't get it, they try to end things. But even with that resistance, you still see it growing. Then I do.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It's a great business. It is for me anyway. But I've been doing it 26 years now, so it definitely has been a good business, and it's something, Mike. In business, you always want to do something that you enjoy, because then you just love. You're better at it if you love your work, and it's something for me that I really enjoy. I love the clientele I have. I love meeting the people that I get to meet in this industry, and I'm into it. So it's just been a win-win situation for me, because I just love this whole field of anti-agingness.
Life is too short to have your soul devoured every day as far as where you go and your stomach is turning. When I had my practice, very successful practice, I had my associate, and I said to him one day, it was just so hard. They make it almost impossible to practice now. And I looked at him, I said, we're going to make this fun, whether we make money. And we made money, but I said, because I don't care, I'm not going to come here every day if it's misery. And that's what we did. And it kind of, our actions begot that type of atmosphere. And it was great. It was fun. And it was very enjoyable. And plus, you're seeing, might be a little different from your business. In chiropractic type of clinic I had, I was seeing people at their worst every day. They're coming in pain, right, happy. So you really have to, but see, you're giving people generally something that they want, which is more gratifying for both ends, because people are happy. You're making them look better, feel better, all right, that. And so that was a good path to take. But you've got 2 daughters, and
yes, 2 daughters,
and they're successful.
My oldest runs my wine business for me, and my younger is in a behavioral therapist, works with autistic kids.
Nice. Wow. That's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me about the wine business. You actually sent me some. It's great. I love it. It's not in the stores
Yeah.
here yet, though.
Yeah, we started that. We actually launched it a little over a year ago. It was a year in February, but it was basically my daughter's idea. She wanted to do something, because she always had, her and her friends were always getting together for a bachelorette party or some type of birthday party, and she'd always say, "Hey, we're having a shardy party today." So the name kind of just took. I said, "Hey, we got to market that name and brand it and see what we can do with it and develop our own wine." So, I hired some sommeliers, I guess how you say it. I don't know, that guys that know about wine, because I know absolutely nothing about wine. But I hired some guys to give us a flavor, to create a taste. And so we did that all together. And then we started taste testing and just seeing how good response from other people. And so we ended up getting it going, and we've done extremely well marketing it. I've kind of left her in charge of all the marketing, getting it going. I just had to pay for it all, but it's kind of given her something to do every day. And we're in several restaurants and several liquor markets and liquor stores, and it's done really well.
Can that brand go national, Troy?
Oh, it will go national. Yeah, I'll make sure of it. Yeah, no, we're kind of in a downtime because all the things that's going on in the country right now. But we're really, we're talking about doing a red right now, launching it with some big companies. So there's a lot of good things we got going, and this could be really big for me.
Aside from all the obvious reasons, that's why I have you on here. That line right there, oh, it will go national. I'll insure it, or I'll guarantee it. Well, listen, that's, it's confidence. It's not arrogance at all. It doesn't.
No, I mean, you can't go into business saying, well, I hope I make it. I will do whatever it takes to make it. I will open the right doors, and I will find a way to get it to where I need to get. I have a lot of connections being in the business I am now. And so, that always helps, knowing the right people to get you into certain doors. And, Mike, I'm relentless at everything I do. I want to be successful at everything I do, no matter what it is. And so for me, it's not an option to fail with it.
Your name is attached to it. That's an American premise, and I thank you for that, because it's good to know guys like you exist. And in fact, Relentless, the Defendus got some kind of trademark, Relentless like a shark or something, because he's all about that too. But the wine, you don't drink, and neither do I. I mean, I have no. So, but that doesn't really matter. You're still providing a product and a service, and it's more your daughter's business, right?
Yes, yeah, and I kind of did it for her, and she's done a really good job marketing it. She knows a lot about wine. Her and her boyfriend owns a chain of restaurants out here, so she's been working with him for many years.
That Troy, that boyfriend, when he came over, did you have to intimidate him, or he was like, he was already on the tip of success?
He's done well, but I had to make sure he knew where not to cross the line. So
I wouldn't be crossing the line. Hey,
he's very successful. He's a hard worker, and I couldn't be happier with her dating him because he's motivated. He came from nothing, and he's worked very hard to get where he's at.
That's what I like. Anything can still be done in America.
Absolutely. That's why we're here. It's the best place in the world to if you can't make it in America, something's wrong, because we have too many opportunities here. You just got to be driven and motivated. You can't sit back and wait for the phone to ring off the hook. I think, especially when I revert that back to bodybuilding, I remember when I won to California, I put flyers out, I sent resumes, I sent them to every promoter, tell them I was available for guest posings. And so many bodybuilders think that when you turn pro, that the phone's just going to ring off the hook and you're going to have all these opportunities, and it just doesn't happen.
You got to hustle. Yeah, I promised Denise that I'd mention her and her affinity for Fontainebleau, and that you competed down there. But she backs everything I do, and I take chances like anyone. I sold my practice. I got sick for a while. Now I'm starting again. But, you know, people like her and you, I surround myself with people who don't bullshit me. And there's not a lot that you can find like that. And that
Right.
they'll tell the truth, that you're on the right track, this and that. So you've probably done that, right? I mean, you've been around some key people that helped you or pushed you in the right direction or steered you clear of the wrong direction.
Well, you know, Mike, I remember when I was growing up young, I always tried to surround myself with people that were much smarter than me, that knew. I always wanted, you know, for lack of better words, I wanted to be the dumbest person in the room,
Right.
because I wanted to learn from them. You know, I remember when I grew up in Riverside, I was like the king of that area of bodybuilding. I had the most potential. I was the one that made the best gains. I was the most famous in that area, but it was just a small fish in a small pond, or a big fish in a small pond rather. And I knew that I had to get out of that area to see what it really is like, because I would have never got better because I had nobody there to drive me, or I had nothing to look forward to because I was already the best. So I remember my first trip to Gold's Gym, and when I saw, you know, Arnold and Lou and Tom Platz and Robbie and the Mentzner brothers and Danny Padilla.
Troy, how old were you? At what
I was
junction?
17 the first time I went there.
Wow.
And I thought, this is where I got to be. This is where I'm going to learn. I'm never going to get better where I'm at because I'm the big fish in a little pond, and you just lose that drive if you don't surround yourself with people that are better than you.
So did you start training there at a young age?
I didn't train there all the time because I lived in Orange County, and that was too far for me. But I would go up there on the weekends, which was a good time to go because that's when all the pros were there. So I used to go up there every Saturday, and I would just train for the day, and I kind of would watch and I would learn. And it just motivated me more because that was something I wanted to get to. I wanted to get to that level.
Troy, we're almost at an hour here, so you've been very gracious with your time. I want to have you back. I hope. You're always so cool with me. You've helped me a lot. You may not even think so, because my questions are probably rudimentary, but you helped me, and I've moved forward because of that, and I thank you dearly. But I'm going to throw some names at you, and you're just going to give me your general thoughts and feelings on these people, okay?
Okay.
All right, so Sean Ray.
One of the best ever.
Arnold.
He's good, but I think he could have done more for the sport.
Vince McMahon, and touch upon the story where you were standing there talking to him. Oh, no, I'm sorry, not Vince McMahon, but Donald Trump, and he was standing backstage with you, and you told me a quick little story about an exchange you had with him.
Love Donald Trump. Still do support him 100%. Think he's the greatest president ever. But besides that, he came to our first show when we were at the Taj Mahal, and I was the surfer guy in there. And at that time, he was married to Marla Maples. He came backstage when I was getting ready to go on, and he had said that I was Marla's favorite at that time. And so
Wow.
He came up to me and he said, "Hey, you know, I remember I thought about being a pro bodybuilder at one time, but I decided to go into real estate instead." And he goes, "I think I made the right decision." I said, "You absolutely did." So I'll never forget that because he was so funny and gracious with me back then.
That's funny how he came across with that. And Vince McMahon.
Marketing genius.
You know, he approached me in the gym because he was training at Gold's in New Haven with you guys. He'd come down. Their main offices are not far from here. He was a big guy, too. He was big. And he came up to me, he said, "Hey, you're the chiropractor." I go, "Yeah." He goes, "You want to work on the guys?" I go, "Yeah. So I was like the guy, but he never paid me.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't care. People like they kind of raised their eyebrow. I'm like, nah, I wasn't about that. I would have, listen, my mother taught me never turn down free food or money. And I said,
That's right.
I don't know who's going to offer me anything for free.
Right.
And finally, you know, all the regular guys, Joe Weider.
Gracious, sincere, and a person that truly loved the sport of bodybuilding.
Troy, I thank you. There's so much more I could ask you, but I think we touched upon a lot of good stuff. And I know I contacted you today to do this, and you said anytime. So, and you've got so much.
Close. So, Mike, it was a perfect time, actually.
Just give us one Vegas story because I'm supposed to meet you there eventually. I'll bring the cigar.
I'll tell you a funny story. I was there. Oh God, it's probably been 10 years ago now, but I've been doing this for so long. But I remember I had credit. I have credit lines there with the casinos. So I remember I had lost 250,000 or something like that, and I had like 10,000 left on my marker.
This is at one sitting, Troy. 200.
Yeah, this is at one sitting.
Okay.
I'd lost a lot. It was one of those days where I was just getting murdered. So I had lost 240, and I had a $250,000 credit line. So I said to the host, I said, "You just give me the last 10." So I started betting. I bet 10. I ended up winning. I left it out there at 20. I won again. So now I'm up to 40. I left it out there. Ended up getting a blackjack. So I ended up getting 50 back. So I'm up 90. So I just got on a run, and I ended up paying my whole credit line off at 250 and was up 500. Wow. So I decided, I cashed out, called my jet, said I'll be there, had the limo take me to the jet, got on the plane, and as we just started taking off, I said, turn around, I want to go try to win $1 million. So I turning the jet around, I went back to the casino, gave all the 500 back, plus my 250 credit line.
Yes. I'm not laughing in a humorous way, but that's kind of counterintuitive to your philosophy, because that'll make you age like a bitch.
Oh, like crazy. That made me want to jump off the balcony. Well, that's the dumbest thing I ever done, but it's a story I'll never forget because I was so stupid.
I told my father that because he watches bodybuilding and he used to bring me when I was a kid, and he likes to gamble, not at your level. And he goes, "How's your friend, the high roller there out in California?" I go, "He's still rolling, Dad." Yeah. He likes those stories. So,
Yeah, I bet. Mike. Yes, there's I've lost a lot of money there, and I've won a lot of money, whatever. But it's something I've never lost what I couldn't afford to lose. Right. I never said, "Oh God, I have to sell my house now," or "I've got to sell one of my businesses," or "I got to sell one of my cars." I only lose what I can afford. Now, nobody likes to lose. That's ridiculous to lose that kind of money because I could have invested in different things. But everybody has their vice. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I've never done a drug in my life. This is my high, basically, is I just enjoy gambling. It's my rush. But I've never risked anything that I could really be in trouble for.
Yeah, if it doesn't affect anybody around you in an adverse way, and you can take care of your responsibilities, I say do what you want, if it's not hurting anybody. But
right.
Troy, thanks, man. This has been fantastic. The people have been very responsive. A lot of questions. That's good, especially on short notice. But thanks, man. I want to have you back. Maybe do a split screen with you and defend us.
Oh, I'd love it.
That'd be quite a talk fest. Maybe sometime this month coming up, and I'll figure out some angles and topics. And because you guys are kind of in parallel business, he helps. All the people he's trained. He trained Newt Gingrich and Calvin Klein.
Right. Yeah, I knew that.
Who's the one? The old talk show woman with all the plastic surgery. Joan Rivers.
Okay.
He's worked. So he's got a lot of experience and stories and keeping people tip top. So that's what it's all about, man. Listen, I've had a lot of pain. I've had 20 orthopedic surgeries. Woe is me. Isn't that sad? But I'm all about. I don't have any time to destroy myself, feel haggard, not sleep well. That comes first. So,
right.
And I think everybody can do that. And I thank you again for offering your services and expertise and, taking all these risks and showing people what can be done as a human. Because too many people are, listen, they're walking around frowning, head down, shoulders sagging. Oh my God, what's going to happen? And they're totally, demotivated, downtrodden. They're so far afield from your thinking. I don't know if there's ever any delivery. I mean, you can't help everyone, but you offer this portal, and it must be great. I'm sure it is.
Yep, it is. It's been a great run for me for sure.
Well, listen, I know that restaurants and Youth Tech Medical, everything's going to be open in 2 weeks. I'm predicting the middle of May.
I would love it.
And that's all, man.
I just want to get back to the gym. That's all. I've been out for over 2 months now. So
You know, I'm doing brisk walks now at night with my girl. Brisk walks.
That's basically what I've been doing, is doing cardio at night.
You are.
That's about it.
See now, when I get you on with Defendus, he's going to come down on you for that cardio. He's anti-cardio, no cardio. He's the no. I don't know if you knew that. No, but he gets attacked. He gets attacked by outward forces who are like, that guy doesn't believe in cardio. And John says, I don't believe it. I know it. You know, which is kind of a good comeback. But
sure, absolutely.
Yeah, John's like that. But Troy, listen, I'll let you go, and I thank you, and I'll shoot you a note on Messenger, and we'll talk soon, man.
You got it, buddy. Pleasure talking to you, Mike.
Thanks, man. Be well.
Okay, brother. See you, buddy.
And thanks, everybody. You have a good night. And boom.